What if you can take your vocabulary in a language and double it automatically? Or what if you can triple it? And what if you can make it times 4, 5, 6, and 7? Well, that's exactly what Binyanim do. It's not just an annoying grammar rule. Binyanim double your ability and your vocabulary in another language. So just take an example. The word learning, yeah, you can speak about learning, but you can also speak about teaching. You can speak about the material being learned. Binyanim is the idea that any verb in Hebrew can be taken and described from the perspective of something else, whether it's the object that it's taking place with, or the person that's doing it, the action, or the item towards which it is done. So so you take the person, the action, and the object of the action. And it lets you play, instead of having words like teach, taught, learn, all those things, you can just play with all of that with the shorish lamad, which means to learn. So you can have lamad, limed, lumdim, lamad, limed, nilmad, speaking about the material. So I'm going to show you in this video how to do those shorashim and how the 7 binyanim can really help you expand your vocabulary and ability to express yourself. So the 7 binyanim are, first of all, you have kal, which is just the basic format of anything, right? So hu achal, hu yashav, hu katav, hu halach. No necessary object that it's being done to. For example, if you say hu lamad, you don't need to tell me what he learned. Hu katav, he wrote, you don't need to tell me what he wrote. He chashba, she thought, you don't need to tell me what she thought. He achla, you don't need to tell me what she ate. So Paal, kal is really just the basic. I wouldn't even include it so much with the other ones, because the other ones are really what happens when you mix that with other actions. So the other ones are nifal, hifil, hufal, pl, pual, hitpel, and I'm going to show how each one has its unique characters. It's really a great and an eye-opening concept. For example, go to the first one, Paal. So again, the most simple form of an action is Paal, and this can be Zachar, Nekeva, Yachid, Rabim, Avar, Hover, Atid. So it's Hu Achal, Ani Achalti, Hem Ochlim, Hen Ochlot, and it could be in the future, Anachnu Nochal, etc. So the Paal can be juggled up in any possible number of ways, whether it's Zachar, Nekeva, Yachid, Rabim, that's fine. All right, next. Here you go the next part, which is Nifal, Hifil, Hufal. So think about an action, an object, and a person, So when anything happens, you can describe it from the perspective of the person that's doing it, the item, or the action. For example, you gave food to your dog. You can talk about what you did, what happened to the food, and what happened to the dog. And this is all while describing the same event. So for example, Sarah he'echila et hakelev, Sarah fed the dog, that would be binyan hifil. You take the shorish achal, hifil means you're talking about what happened to the object of your action, right? So you're talking about the dog. You made the dog eat, right? Sarah fed the dog, hifil, you made the dog eat. Well, obviously it doesn't mean forcefully, but it means you caused the dog to eat. Sarah fed the dog. Sarah he'echila et hakelev. Hef'il. So hef'il is when you're talking about what your action did to something else. So, or what anyone's action did to something else, right? It could be Sarah, Moshe, Chaim, whoever it is. So Sarah he'echila et hakelev. That's one. Hef'il, you're talking about what was done to the other thing, how you impacted the other thing. How did the action of the person impact the other thing? Sarah he'echila et hakelev. Sarah fed the dog. So you're talking about what was done to the dog. But what if you were talking about from the perspective of the dog without even talking about Sarah? What if you were just saying the dog was fed? So that would be hakelev hu achal hufal. So you're just talking about the object that is impacted by the action. Hakelev hu achal. So that is hufal. Again, you're talking about the perspective of the target of your actions without mentioning whose actions they are, or anyone's actions, any actions. Hufal, you're talking about what was done to the target of the action. Or you can talk from the perspective of the food. Ha'ochel ne'echal, the food was eaten. Nifal, you're talking only about the food. You're not talking about the action. You're not talking about who did the action. You're talking about the item that took place in this action. So the food was eaten. Ha'ochel hu ne'echal nifal. Again, not about the origin of the action, not about the target of the action. You're just talking about what, the actual food. What happened to the food? It was eaten. And the same thing can be done, let's say, with the word bishel, which means to cook. So it could be well, it's really hard with Hafshila, but let's take a look at other examples. So for example, and this is also with Nifal, Hefil, Hufal, and Hitpel. So you have Moshe wore the shirt. So you're talking about Moshe, you're talking about the wearing, and you're talking about the shirt. Those are three things you're talking about. So you can speak about from the just basic perspective of the action, Paal, which is really not speaking about anything besides the actual action. Moshe wore the shirt. Moshe lavash tachutza. But then you can talk about the shirt. What happened to the shirt? Well, the shirt was worn by Moshe, which is nifal. What happened to the object? Hachulza nilbisha al yedei Moshe. Now, it's important to note, by the way, that not every single shoresh is going to have all 7 varieties possible and logical for it. It's possible that they won't have all of them. So another perspective is, what if you're talking about only Moshe and his perspective? So Moshe hu bash al yedei ima shelo. Moshe was dressed by his mom. So that's hufal. You're talking about what was done to Moshe. What if you were just talking about mom? Right? Ima helbisha et Moshe. Mom dressed Moshe up. Hefil. You're saying, what did mom do? Mom dressed Moshe up. And what if Moshe dressed himself up? You have one that's a combination of both hefil and hufal, which is hitpael. What if Moshe dressed himself up? That is hitpael. So again, you have Moshe lavash tachutza, paal, and then you have the shirt was worn by Moshe, nifal. You're talking about what happened to the shirt. It was worn by Moshe, nifal. Then you have only Moshe. What was done to Moshe? What was he going through? Moshe was dressed by his mom. Hufal. Moshe was dressed by his mom. Moshe hu bash al yedei ima shelo. But what did mom do? Ima helbisha et Moshe. Hefil. She dressed him up. And what if Moshe dressed himself up? That is hitpael. So that's the idea of Paal, Nifal, Hefil, Ufal, Paal, Paal. It allows you to focus on any given word and action from multiple perspectives. It's a really helpful tool. And here you have another one with Paal, Pual, and Hitpel, which are a bit harder to distinguish, but let's take a look. So when you cause something to happen to something else, it is PL. When you're actually causing something, which often we're talking about change. When you're talking not so much about an action as much as real change, like something was changed in the other thing. So PL is when you're impacting real, actual change in an item. So for example, heating the house, that's not like dressing someone up. That's like, wow, you're changing the entire house. So you have the shorish is chimem, which is hot, chamam, chet memem. And you can say Shlomit heated up the house. So she made the house hot. So Shlomit chimema et habayit. She made the house become hot. Or you can talk about the house. What happened to the house? The house was heated up. Habayit chumam. So that is pu'al. The house was heated up. So you're talking about PL is Shlomit really created change. She made the house hot. You can say habayit chumam. The house was heated up. And you can do hitpa'el, which is sort of a combination, and you're talking about the house got hot, sort of, by the way, very similar to Moshe dressing himself up. Hitpael, you have a bait hitchamem, the house heated, got itself hot. Here are some examples of words you can use on your own. So katav, that for example, the word katav, which means to write, you can talk about yourself katav. You can just say katav, you wrote. But then you can talk about the letter. The letter was written. Nichtav, ha-michtav, nichtav, the letter was written. Or you can say, Paal, Nifal, Hefil, you made someone else write. Hechtiv, hamoreh, hechtiv, et hamilim, the teacher dictated the words to other students. Or Hufal, Hamichtav huchtav, hamilim huchtavu. You're talking about the item. The words were written up. Hitkatev, I corresponded with someone. Hitkatev. Every one of these words can be used for most of the binyanim, but again, not all of them, not every single one of them. And so those are the binyanim in a nutshell. It's really a very powerful tool, and I am certain you'll do really well with it.